Okay, obviously we still have the second session to go this morning, but looking very good this morning, midfield there.
Yeah, the car is running pretty good, and I could get all the three sectors together in a lap, so we got a good time, and now we have to push in the afternoon, which really counts today.
Would you describe this as a driver's circuit?
Not really. I would say that the old one was, you had to be braver than this one. But still, this one is technically, and you have to get everything right, so it's quite technically. But you don't need to be so, you don't need to, there's not real crucial points.
But the good news is that the arrows appears to be pretty good without too much work needed on it.
Yeah, we didn't make much work because we didn't race last time, and it seems it has been a long time that I couldn't drive so much the car. So the car is looking good, and hopefully we can keep the same pace in the afternoon.
What's your favorite corner here?
I quite like the stadium, the first corner on the stadium, because it's a quick corner, and always I like quick corners, so that's my favorite one still.
But why do you think so many people are going off there this year compared with last year or previous years?
Yeah, I think there is two reasons. I think now, before you used to run very low downforce and for this long straights, so the corner speed was a little bit slower, and now we get from a very wide track, and the stadium is narrow, a little bit narrow, so you know, it's always everybody runs on, there's a green grass created at the exit, everybody runs there, and that's a little bit down, so upset the car quite a lot. So I've been touching the gravel yesterday once and today once already, so but it is exciting, you know.
Yes, the change in track width is obviously significant, but you would think that with more downforce you'd go off less, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would go off less, but the corner speed is maybe something like 40 kilometers an hour quicker, so it's a different approach to the corner, you know. It's almost no braking, just going in and back on the power again.
Ah, so it is testing the driver's skill.
Yeah, for sure. You know, every time you drive a Formula 1 car, it's not easy, and to be quick especially, and so you must have some skill at least.
Okay, Enrique, well, good luck for the second session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to see Bernoldi out. That's the important thing, and some good responses to Peter's questions. He's obviously quite enjoying the track, but good point about the difference in width between new and old section.
Yeah, you could see that certainly when we went there on Friday, that the old track is narrow, and the Agip corner, the corner that Bernoldi was talking about, the corner that he likes, it is a critical corner. It's a difficult corner. The speed up by 40 kilometers per hour, which is a massive amount. Nevertheless, drivers have to accept that the track is narrower. They've got to accept the limits of the corner. Two corners, I think, are going to be pretty exciting when we get through this next 45-minute session. As teams then prepare, they've got to decide which tyre they want to use for qualifying, and they will be pushing very hard in the remaining of the closing moments of this upcoming session. And that will be turn one, the north curve, as they go out, and that's the corner we saw Jenson Button appear to get it all wrong and spun across the track and spun to the inside and caught the barriers. So turns one and the Agip curve, ones to watch for maximum excitement. And well, you know, a lot have been off in the Agip, not too many in turn one. It's not the simple racetrack. You know, drivers are saying that the old circuit was a massive challenge. This circuit has got its own challenges, and the speed's not maybe ultimately as high, but nevertheless, you know, you've got to get it right, and you've got to drive within the limits of the circuit. Otherwise, you could find it being a bit painful.
Indeed. Well, down there's still plenty of work going on as we wait for the second session of free practice to get underway. We're only a few minutes away, 3 minutes away now, from the next 45-minute session, at the end of which we will expect to see a number of drivers putting in their simulated qualifying runs and giving us a much closer idea of what the pole time will be here this afternoon. It's remained overcast. It's still a bit of a grey day. They're forecasting sunshine for Sunday, but it has remained slightly cloudy today, so temperatures not as high as we might have expected here at Hockenheim at this time of the year.
Well, work still continuing on Heidfeld's car to get it ready. It looks like they're probably going to be pretty close. The floor is back on the car. The spare car still, of course, unavailable to the teams until qualifying begins at 1 o'clock, and Felipe Massa just sits up on the benches and, you know, moulds away the moments. We've got a few minutes ticking away until the cars go back out on track, and then they can continue this 45-minute session. And towards the end, I look forward to it. I think these closing moments of the second part of Saturday morning are amongst the best of any during the weekend. And then, of course, we've got that 1 hour of qualifying itself. Well, there's a memory that takes me back. Martini Racing, that was Brabham, sponsored by Martini Rossi back in 1976 and 77. And the old Brabham Alpha used to tank around here. Almost had pole position here for that race. That little sod, Jody Scheckter, nicked it from me in the closing moments. Something tricky they did with the tyres, it was rumoured at the time. Sadly, the Alpha didn't make it through the race. And I'm not sure whether it was Nicky Lauda or Jody Scheckter won it. In fact, I think Nicky did.
When you raced here then, John, the long circuit was without chicanes, presumably, so very, very fast up to the Ost curve at the top part of the track.
Yeah, it was pretty quick, and I mean, the chicanes certainly came in on the first straight and on the return straight. We didn't have a chicane at the Ost curve. That came much later, but you could sort of get up there, and I suppose we were doing about 185, 190 miles an hour. And you know, some people would say they'd take it flat, some would say they didn't. It was always a question of just getting the car in, and you probably scrubbed quite a lot of speed off because those cars had very little downforce by today's standards, so the car would slide and scrub quite a lot of speed off. But the key was to keep the speed up as much as possible to get good exit speed down the third straight before you went into the chicane. But I did race on it without any chicanes. That was in Formula 2, and believe me, it was daunting. It was absolutely awesome.
That must have been amazing. Yes, big slipstreaming battles, something we don't really tend to see in Formula 1 anymore, of course, where you have a whole host of cars all looking for the slipstream and being able to draft past. Well, that's a little bit the history of Formula 1. We're concentrating on what's happening now in Formula 1, and particularly the relative performance of the teams. Renault have, as we've mentioned earlier, been struggling to keep up with the pace somewhat. Peter Windsor is talking to Flavio Briatore.
Flavio, Jensen did not want to talk to the press after that little incident this morning, so perhaps you could just tell us what happened there.
Nothing. I believe he made the car in neutral and overrev and we changed the engine.
So the car jumped into neutral as he was going into the corner.
Yeah.
It's a gear selection problem.
I think so.
And changing engine because of the over revving and then all the other stuff getting into it. Yeah, I'm getting there, eh?
Yeah, you're getting there.
How's it going, though? It doesn't look to be an easy weekend for you so far.
No, so far is quite difficult, but let's see. And it's really, really difficult for us.
Why is that?
If I know, I was fixing already.
Okay, well, what are the symptoms of this difficult problem? Is it sliding all over the place, or...?
We don't find any grip, and we lose, in one corner we lose half second. Is something we're looking now. Maybe I don't know. The combination between chassis and tire is not fantastic here.
And in this situation, it makes it very difficult, as you have to start thinking about tomorrow and choosing which tyre you want to be on as well, I guess.
Yeah, now we choose. I think so. We need to see what kind of temperature you have, and whatever we try doing better now, but it's difficult. It's difficult to set up the car.
Okay, thank you very much, Flavio.
So Flavio not having a very good weekend. The track's reopened, and as you saw, Trulli is now on track.
And I have to say, in that interview, Peter, I mean, clear you could make out what he was saying. Flavio was just about incomprehensible, and I just wonder, is that maybe relative to the performances so far this weekend? And clearly a massive disappointment for Renault that they're so far down the order. Trulli is in 17th button, 15th, but of course he had that problem with gear selection, we were being told, and he slid across the track into the concrete barriers on the outside of turn one, inside of turn one.
Yeah, just past here where we're riding with Trulli as he heads down. This is turn 2. He had a spin himself here earlier on today, remember? Gives us a good opportunity to look at the track again. Up on the right there, big Mercedes-Benz grandstand, which is up by part of the new section, now coming down towards the hairpin.
Ben, part of the trouble that Flavio was talking about, that first sector, 7/10 of a second slower than Michael Schumacher, and that's a 16 and a bit second sector for Michael Schumacher. You know, that is a bunch of time, and to lose that in a very straightforward, simple part of the circuit, you can understand where the problems are with the car.
Yeah, there's only 2 corners really in that first sector. The first corner off the start-finish straight, and then turning off the old circuit, so they really do seem to be struggling somewhat.
And 1.8 seconds off by the time they get to the second sector, in a 51.8 second sector for Schumacher. So it's whatever their problems are, it's an interface between car and tyre, and Renault have had a good year so far. Here it's all going pear-shaped for them.
unique aspect to this Hockenheim track is the way the stadium section here has the stands surrounding the whole side of it. You get this bank of people, not quite full up today for the race. Oh, it's a little bit of a mistake there. Not quite full up for the qualifying, rather, but they will be for the race tomorrow. I'm sure that we'll have a sellout crowd. Everybody here to celebrate the 5th championship for this man.
Ben, I'm slightly perplexed by what's going on at Renault, and just think about the Jordan.
Right-hand side.
Takuma Sato on the radio. They've gone back to a two-plane rear wing, and I'm just wondering, sometimes on a car you can actually have too much downforce. For some circuits, there's an optimum amount of downforce you want to run to take into consideration the corners, the straights, and what you have to do in braking. I just wonder if maybe Benetton have gone down the route of trying to nail the car so heavily to the ground that they're actually losing the plot, whereas Ferrari have gone back. They've taken out some downforce. Jordan appeared to be going the same route, and Fisichella was 7th quickest this morning, Sato in 10th. So maybe Renault might do the opposite to what they think and just back off in the downforce.
Well, we're riding with Montoya. Sato was going very slowly a moment ago, but he seems to be still making his way around the track. And there we can see how the Williams responds. This is coming up to part of the new section, through this flat-out right-hander. Quick through there, but they don't need to use all the road on the exit. They get back over to the other side so that they can take this sharp left-hander. And now through this very tricky right, coming out there, that's where they might be able to get flat out through the corner in qualifying.
Here's the trouble corner. This is the Algip curve. Montoya goes out to the very edge but stays away from that gravel so he doesn't lose any particular time. Nothing so spectacular on this run from Pablo Montoya. We're not expecting to see any improvement on his current 15.893, but that last exit onto pit straight, you can pick up time. So Montoya does 16.771, which is in fact 9/10 of a second away from his best.
Alan McNish in the Toyota, currently finding himself down in 20th place. His teammate Mika Salo is 14th. This looks like he might improve somewhat on the lap, across the line in 10th place.
Yes, and you could see McNish having to put a fair amount of lock on the car as he came through those final 2 turns. And back to a replay for Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yeah, just running a little bit wide, I think he was, on the exit. Let's take a look. Ooh.
It didn't look as bad as that on board the camera, and that was the lap we were riding with him on board. That's the replay from outside of the car. It looked a lot less difficult for him on board than it does from the external camera.
There is Button's car, engine off, as they continue to change the motor on his machine in time for qualifying this afternoon. So loss of track time for the Englishman. Looking done. Back with Raikkonen.
It's quite hard work for the McLaren driver. He's fighting the car all the way through those final 2 turns. So let's see if there's much improvement from Kimi Raikkonen. And an improvement in time, but he stays 14th. So it must still have a fair amount of fuel on board in this early part of Saturday morning practice.
Certainly not much time to relax around this track any longer. There used to be time to wind up to each critical braking area for the chicanes. It's a much more busy lap now as we're watching David Coulthard on track. Good first sector for Coulthard, but the second sector nothing particularly exciting. Sato, we did hear a bit of radio communication earlier on and confirmation that Sato has got an exhaust problem. That's the reason he's going slowly. He's brought it back to the pits now, and so Jordan have got some sorting to do on his machine.
Or as they call it in Germany, it's an Auspuff.
Right, thank you very much. John, didn't know you spoke German as well.
Well, when you go to Germany as regularly as I do, you learn, you pick up these things. So Kimi Raikkonen again, not as much curb this time, stayed way off it. Now whether he thinks it's quicker or slower, we'll have a look and see. His last lap didn't see any improvement in position. He still remains 14th. He's still looking to improve in a 17.397. It was harder work through here than we've seen from him. Again, still working very hard on the steering wheel, just sort of feeling the car, just balancing the car on the throttle and steering. So Raikkonen, well, what's happened? 18.396. going backwards right now.
Yeah, doesn't look as though the tyres are perhaps maintaining the same sort of performance as the Bridgestones, although it's early days to work on that. And of course temperature changes over the weekend will make a difference. Here we are looking back at Raikkonen through this right-hander where that's going to be a crucial corner in qualifying.
Yes, it was, and that was a little moment for Kimi Raikkonen. His car looks very front-endy to me, not the way McLaren really would like to work best.
With a different way of a different setup.
It's Benoldi at the head bend.
Oh,
and Coulthard. And that is in this is the final two turns. He spun where we've seen Michael Schumacher get it wrong, and Ruben Barrichello.
Lots of mistakes. It's interesting, isn't it? And as the drivers get used to the higher downforce levels, look, another mistake.
Alex Young goes over the gravel big time.
Yeah, he's done that. That's coming out of Ajip again. And well, let's see what he did. We saw him go almost straight on earlier. This was the other spin of Benoldi. This was down at turn 2, in fact. But it was Alex Young. This is Coulthard. Catch up on all the spins. That's Coulthard's spin, same place as Michael, but instead of going to the inside, he goes off to the outside.
And he's on the grid for the drag race track, which is here at Hockenheim as well.
Well, he didn't do any damage anyway. There's lots of runoff there, that's the good news. And he comes back onto the track. And then let's see what's been happening here with Michael Schumacher as well. He ran wide coming into the stadium.
Yes, so Michael sprays the gravel up as well. And this turn, the Ajip turn, is certainly causing to be get rides the curb, and I wonder just when you do that if you do lose any downforce from underneath the car. But again, getting it pretty wrong, which is something we don't see too often from the newly crowned world champion for the 5th time.
Coming down to the hairpin here, and there you are, braking just on the 100-metre board. You could see the board flash by as he then got on the brakes and now builds up the speed once again. Listen out. Easy flat through that one. Now listen for the next corner.
Short shifts it.
Yeah, just changes up a little early.
But the thing is, by short shifting, it enables them to keep the power on. So short shifting, of course, is changing up before the maximum RPM, but it enables him to get into the gear he wants for the exit and keeps the throttle pretty much open.
And it looks as though Michael comes in now, yes, so he finishes off that lap by coming into the pits. 18 laps he's completed between the two sessions so far. There is the work going on Sato's car, trying to solve the exhaust problems on that right-hand bank.
I tell you, you want a good pair of gloves to get stuck into that. The exhaust pipes in these cars get very, very hot. Fortunately, it's very thin material, so it cools down pretty quickly as well as DC goes through the Ajip curve, and it didn't look the most comfortable trip this time for David. Nevertheless, an improvement in first sector, nothing of any improvement in the second. Again, this is where he spun and he gets it wrong a second lap consecutively. This time dives into the pit. Ability and the control that David enjoyed from the McLaren and Manicure seems not to be found here this weekend to date.
Yeah, just got away from him a little bit on the brakes there, didn't it? It's an interesting little section, that oval curve into the right-hander. The road undulating slightly through there, and if you just get the rhythm a bit wrong, he perhaps just the brake balance or something, just the back end stepping out as he tried to turn in.
Well, I don't think they're using very much brake there at all. I think they're just letting the car run out and just holding it on the throttle. If they are, it'll be a bit of left foot braking, but for some reason on 2 consecutive laps Coulthard's had a problem with his car. Now that's not the kind of setup David Coulthard likes. He wants a car that is much more stable in the rear, and we saw that very much in Manicure last weekend. We're not seeing it in this run for Coulthard, whether that's a tyre issue or whether it's a car setup issue. But even Raikkonen through there, you remember how hard he's working on the steering. He's constantly working the steering wheel, just balancing the car all the way through. Raikkonen, of course, capable of dealing with a nervous car better than David is.
So Olivier Panis on track now with the BAR Honda, and he's 9th currently, and on an improving lap possibly. It depends really on this last sector. First sector was good, middle sector not much different to what he's done before. And now this is the section where we saw Coulthard get into trouble. That looked pretty neat and tidy for Olivier Panis. There's the overhead view, comes out of the last corner over the grid area, and that puts him up into 7th. So that's a little bit of an improvement for the Honda-powered driver. And talking of Honda power, we've seen problems for the Jordan of Takuma Sato. Peter Windsor's caught up with the Japanese driver.
Taku, we know about your exhaust problem. Very frustrating because you're running in the top 10 there.
Yeah, it is frustrating, but everybody working hard, and probably just a 10-15 minute shot. So
You seem pretty calm and confident. Does the car feel good?
yeah, car feel good, much better. I mean, Hockenheim, there is not much places climbing over the car. That is better for.
That's better for your car if you're not using curve.
Yeah, it's great. Great feeling.
Well, that's good to hear. Do you enjoy this circuit?
Yeah, I am really enjoying it. A bit of a shame, has a problem, but I think I definitely can go out, before the qualifier, which is great news.
Okay, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
So they're looking to get that solved. They've got just over half an hour in which to solve it. Massa going very slowly there, not quite sure why. Frentzen also has backed off considerably as they come into the... well, he's coming through the Sachs curve now, but Sato... Frentzen himself has gone 17th fastest, so he was on, had a good mid-sector, then he backed off on the last sector, and now he's going to try and string together another lap.
Watch, I thought we were going to sit through the North Curve from the onboard shot. Frentzen with Benoldi just directly behind him, so the two arrows running in tandem, a lock-up going into turn 2. Let's look again and see from Mrs. Frentzen's view, he backed off. Again, traffic situation, Felipe Massa and the Cyber just really causing Frentzen to say, I can't be bothered with this. So it backs off, and then we look down into the Ferrari and bits of grass. So who has been cutting the grass? It's Michael Schumacher. That was due to his exit. That time he went off, going through this corner. We're now watching from the Casalo's perspective.
Haven't seen Barrichello back out yet, of course. They're still making repairs to his car after that incident just at the end of the first session. And this might improve Salo's time up into the top 10 possible here. Let's see if the Finn can do something a bit more with the Toyota across the line. 7th, so good lap indeed for Mika Salo, puts him just behind Nick Heidfeld.
And just look how quick it is through turn 1 on board the Toyota, and we're going to see lots more of that, I hope, in qualifying.
Salo nearly took his, could have taken his first ever and only ever Grand Prix win here at Hockenheim. The year he drove the Ferrari in place of Michael Schumacher. But of course team orders came into play and he moved over to let Eddie Irvine take the win back in 1999.
And that didn't cause the furore that we saw in Austria this year, maybe because, well, it was a slightly different approach. Salo wasn't quite as dominant as Rubens Barrichello was in Austria, but team orders have existed, and Eddie Irvine benefited also later that year in Malaysia when Michael Schumacher dominated the race, pulled over, let Eddie take the victory and the 10 points. Seems to be forgotten in the mists of memories.
I suppose they're both races later in the season than Austria, and I think perhaps everyone getting very upset about Austria because it was so early on in the season. Anyway, that's all ancient history now. We're looking at the German Grand Prix and what's going to happen in the remaining races of this year. Frentzen's on an improving lap at the moment. Let's hope he gets a clear run this time. Michael Schumacher already wrapping up the title, but determined to try and take his only second German Grand Prix victory here at Hockenheim. And to add to that impressive record, looking for another win. It would be 62, of course, if he takes the victory this weekend, and continuing a brilliant season for him. Now, where's Jacques going this time?
Well, he's off track in turn 2 once again, so Jacques Villeneuve, I don't know, I mean, I'm perplexed. I am perplexed. I mean, I think Olivier Panis is a straight up and down guy, gets into the car, does the job, goes for the setup, that is just the logical setup. Jacques seems to go all tricky and clever with Jacques Clear. They got this partnership, and the guy has got ability, he's got speed, he's got intelligence, yet he's fiddling around, and 1 minute it's spot on, and the next minute it's just a million miles away.
Well, he's
issue that Williams will have to face, and it'll be the same for McLaren, but very much more for Williams, is do they take the chance and go on that softer tyre, which from previous experience they've known that they just destroy it, whereas McLaren made it work really, really well for them in Manicourt. And no doubt in that one single flying lap, close your eyes and pray, Juan Pablo Montoya could get it onto the front row of the grid, but whether he could do enough to take pole position, judging from what we've seen over the session so far, I think it's going to be doubtful.
Bridgestone guys getting stuck in. It's like a rugby scrum there once the car comes in. Great fun.
Well, very keen for both sides of the tyre argument to know what everybody's doing, and it's important to keep an eye on every run of your competitors to see which tyre they are on. It's monitored pretty much by the guys at the end of the pit lane. They've all got an individual down there checking to see, certainly when they go out in a new tyre, that they can pick up any code numbers which may be on the side of the tyre above that is actually stamped into the tyre. Well, they will do that. It's all information for the team and for the tyre companies.
So will Montoya do it again today? That's the big question. Will he take his 6th pole in a row? He's on a good lap at the moment in this free practice session, just improving slightly on his own split time at the first checkpoint, just running wide there but keeping it under control. And now into this long looping hairpin. It's you can keep a bit of speed through there, now through this sequence of curves, the opal curves, and now up to the last bend as he heads on to start-finish straight. Let's see if this is an improvement for Montoya. 15.8 currently his best. No, it's a 16.3, so it's about half a second slower than his best today.
Well, Raikkonen's going to improve. In fact, he has improved up to 11th. He was further down. Pretty quick through that turn 1, I have to say.
Yeah, great commitment being shown once again from the Finn. And after the confidence boost of coming so close to winning his first Grand Prix last weekend, now just trying to build on that and make the most of it. Had his best qualifying performance as well, remember. He was on the 2nd row, 4th on the grid in Manicourt, and McLaren surely will be challenging Williams and Ferrari once again here today.
Watch Coulthard. This looked pretty good. Exit out of turn 1, first sector time, no impersonal improvement. 16.745, just over 2/10 of a second down. As he comes down this long parabolic, long curve into the hairpin bend. Clean entry, good exit, traction control cuts in. Listening the other day to Williams BMW running at Silverstone, the traction control, the want it comes in, was remarkable. I mean, it really does cut in on the low speed corners. And of course, you'd want to try and reduce it as much as possible, as Michael Schumacher just makes his way down pit lane, peels a tear off the visor. And David comes into the Imola corner and does a nice job on the exit, but already a second down. And David's best time to date, 1:16.7, 1.4 or 1.6 seconds away from Michael Schumacher's time. It's good to see. I mean, Mika Salo is going to be his next target. He's a 10th of a second away from David's 7th place. So can he take 6th? No, he stays in fact in 8th. Doesn't even get to Salo in 7th.
So no improvement as yet, but this is a little bit of a quiet time in this session because we're waiting for the last minutes where they may well come out and do something more spectacular. Still the work going on Jenson Button's car, that engine change taking place, and so it's fairly frantic, but no panic. Just everybody knows what they have to do. Giancarlo Fisichella on track. Remember Sato, his teammate, still there trying to sort out the exhaust problem. Well, in fact, no, he is back out again, isn't he, Sato? So that's good news. They have managed to sort that problem out, and he is on track now.
And Fisichella's 5th quickest. Again, a lap sliding in for the Italian. And he's got a personal best in that 2nd sector. Didn't appear to improve on his best in the 1st sector. Comes through the final 2 corners. And now Giancarlo Fisichella, he's 2/10 of a second away from Ralph in 4th. But he doesn't manage it. In fact, he's a 10th of a second away from his best in that final sector.
And I think we can speak to team boss Eddie Jordan. Eddie, thank you for joining us once again. And the boys have done a good job to get Takuma's car back out by the looks of things.
Yeah, Taku is he's had a problem with an exhaust problem, and he'll be fine. He'll be out shortly. I think the tyres are a help here, and Fissy's done a particularly good job so far, but fingers crossed it's turned against us in the past. Let's see what happens later on.
What about weather forecast? I mean, it has stayed fairly cool today. It looks like it might be getting hotter tomorrow. Is that going to change the relative performance between the tyre companies?
Well, not really. I think this is Bridgestone has made a big jump forward, particularly accommodating the very hot conditions. But here in Hockenheim, it's not envisaged to be much hotter than about 25, 26 degrees tomorrow, and then that's perfect Bridgestone weather.
Now this week, of course, must be concerns about whether Giancarlo was going to get in the car. You must have been pretty relieved that he's made a good recovery from that accident.
Well, not alone has he made a brilliant recovery, but I think the rest has helped him, and no testing, because he's fitter and really up for this. He virtually won the race here about 3 years ago in his first year of racing, 1997, and he got a puncture right at the end. He hasn't forgotten it, and he wants to win a race here, hopefully in a Jordan car, but we're a bit away from that at the moment. What is important is to get some results here.
Great, well thank you very much, Eddie, for joining us, and I hope the qualifying session goes well this afternoon.
Well, we've just seen an absolutely stunning, blinding lap from Michael Schumacher. It all came in that final sector. He was massively quicker than he'd been in previous laps. 1:14.486. Well, 1:16 was the projected time for qualifying. We're now into the middle 1:14s, and that is quite remarkable. And Michael Schumacher, no doubt, will be delighted with the car being a lot more stable than it was in those final two turns than we saw in the first part of this morning's 2 45-minute sessions.
So, massive advantage for Ferrari at the moment, but let's just wait and see what everyone else can do. Trulli still down there in 17th place, even though he's improved on his times at each sector. Now, Ralph on a new set of tyres here on the Williams will begin to get a little clearer idea. But are Michelin going to have any answer to Bridgestone? We heard from Eddie Jordan there that he feels very much that Bridgestone have the advantage, and Patrick Head looking very serious in the background as ever.
Look at the front of the Ferrari, the camber that they're running in the front wheels. As we just get this slow-mo of Michael coming down to that tight left-hander in the new part of the circuit. There is trainer and dietitian, delighted with it, saying that's all down to me, all that good work that I do with Michael at and away from racetracks. And I mean, absolutely magic, 1:14.686.
Yeah, so let's see what everyone else could do. Nick Heidfeld in the Sauber has been running quickly all day today, and this is a good first sector coming up from him, 16.5.
Yeah, it looked like Jarno Trulli either had pulled off track as the Renault, just as we watched Nick Heidfeld come past him. Wasn't quite clear what Trulli was doing, but certainly he was very slow and at an unusual angle. As Heidfeld, again, watching the Sauber, it was a bit sort of unstable through here. It looks slightly better now. This
is a good lap coming up from Nick. Now, whether it will challenge Barrichello's second place, he's not going to be far away from that, you know. Oh, well, no, in fact, he loses quite a lot on that last sector. So he goes 5th. If you look at the times, he's only a few thousandths slower than Ralf Schumacher in 4th, and Montoya is a couple of tenths faster in 3rd.
So Michael Schumacher comes across the line again. It's not going to improve, but it's still 1:15.455. Even that lap, which is down in his best, was still quicker than Barrichello's best over this session.
What's McNish been up to? First corner, ran wide over the extra piece of tarmac. Don't think there's any problem there, really. Not too many dramas, and he gets back onto the track once again. Currently 12th fastest, as his teammate is 7th, having put in a quick run fairly early on in the session.
And clearly the benefit of that tarmac on the outside of corners comes into view when a driver gets it wrong. He's got the option to recover it by going off track, and then there's a little exit just at the very end of the corner where he can come back on track, and that is something that the tarmac clearly is an advantage over the gravel.
This is the lap on new tyres for Ralf Schumacher. He was 3 tenths slower than Michael on the first checkpoint. Second split comes up after the next section, so he goes through the right, around the next hairpin, and then it's just after the next quick right-hander that we get an idea on the second checkpoint. Let's watch and listen here. Oh, just a little lift there this time, almost flat through there, and fastest through the mid-sector. Fastest of everybody through that middle sector.
But really fighting the car coming through Imola. You could see the amount of lock he had to apply to get the car to keep it in check, keep it on track. But interesting that Michelin have come up with the tyre, and Ralf Schumacher's the driver who's displaying that to us through these final 2 corners. Has good exit, economic on the exit. Let's see how much Ralf Schumacher goes second, 1:15.154. And all of a sudden, well, they're not quite at the races yet, but they're getting there. And Gerhard Berger's face, impassive as ever, will be relieved to see that Ralf Schumacher, if he can do this time, well, they'll think, what will Pablo Montoya do when he gets a new set of rubber and goes on that little qualifying run before this session concludes.
Yes, certainly it's been Montoya who's had the qualifying edge in recent races. I'm sure Ralf will want to redress that balance, and he may be very fired up here in home territory to do so. Good lap from Ralf Schumacher, winner of just one pole position, remember, in his career, last year's Manicure race. So about time that he put the challenge in himself. There is his teammate, though, who has proved so effective in qualifying.
So the team working away, making adjustments in the rear wing. And is this either a reduction or an increase in downforce for the Williams of Montoya? And you know, you can maybe carry a little bit more wing in a qualifying session. If you feel that it's going to help you, you may want to take it off, where your options are going to be limited in terms of being able to overtake. And right now Ferrari, well, in fact it's Villeneuve's the quickest car, Fisichella second quickest car, obviously with the wing reduction. And well, David Coulthard spinning as well as we look into the Ferrari pit. That's one of the other channels. So all sorts of action going on around the Hockenheim ring right now as we're just under 15 minutes to go, and Ferrari just continuing that setup preparation on Barrichello's car.
Yes, Felipe Massa is going well. He's got a good split, personal best. Now, watch him through the new part here. Watch the jiggling on the steering wheel he does.
Yeah, he does a lot of that. I mean, he really works the car hard. He works himself. Oh!
That was a big sideways moment. That was the right-hander we're talking about.
But it doesn't seem to faze him at all. He just sort of lets it happen and lives with it. Now runs wide. Car flicks and darts all over the place. Locks up a wheel coming to the Sachs curb. I mean, he does make life hard for himself at times, I think.
Yeah, sometimes he does the work rather than letting the car do the work. You do get the feeling of like that sometimes, but he is fun to watch, have to say. Let's see where this puts him. He is 10th, he stays 10th, in fact, 16.8, so about a 10th of a second slower than his previous best. And it was this little mistake here that would have cost some of that time.
Well, he was just being a little bit ambitious, I think, with the amount of grip. He uses so much front-end downforce in the car. The back end is almost sort of like a trailer, just sort of swings around, and Montoya now with revised aerodynamics, but most importantly a new set of tires. And I wonder what Patrick Heads thought. You'd give him a penny for that thought, wouldn't you?
Yes, that's right. Qualifying has been their terrain just recently, but it's race results and points that really count. It's being in that top six and being preferably on the podium. That's what they need to be.
Raikkonen personal best. First sector makes the way down this long left-hand parabolic curve. Watch for the braking zone that's coming up. Well, he's before the 100 metres there.
Well, perhaps not on a new set of tyres at the moment. Now accelerating, using all that 850 horsepower to bring it back up to speed. Now into the next hairpin, the left-hander. Uses the curb, pretty flat curb there on the inside. Bit of a lift through the right-hander.
Very wide in the exit.
Yeah, uses the extra space available. Now watch him through the Ajit curve. Does he go out wide? No, that was pretty neat.
And he's got two personal bests now, first and second sector. Interesting the way he was taking that corner back onto the straight, where Michael Schumacher short shifts and is able to keep the throttle open. Kimmy's holding it and breathing it, and the car would be less stable in that context.
Comes safely through the last bend, and where does this put him? It keeps him 7th.
Well, he goes up to 7th, up to 7th.
Sorry, 16.510 his best lap. That's 3/10 slower than Fisichella. That's a bit of a surprise that the Jordan is currently quicker than this McLaren Mercedes.
Look at the understeer he had going through there, and that's why he ran wide. And again, listening to what he's doing and watching on board and looking at what Michael Schumacher was doing. Schumacher was turning in, short shifting, and able to hold the car in, but using the throttle to settle the car down.
Now Montoya going on to his flying lap on these new tyres, John, so this will give us a little indicator of what pace he's capable. First sector comes up just on the exit of this turn 2 and turn 3. It's just a flat-out corner, turn 3. First split coming up, and he's 0.2 of a second down on Michael Schumacher, but it's the mid-sector that Ralf Schumacher was so quick in the other Williams.
Indeed it was. So now watch Montoya comes down. It's not necessarily important to brake right on the ragged edge. Well, Montoya certainly was pretty late in the brakes, dragged that right front. But let's watch as he comes through this part of the racetrack, where his teammate picked up so much time. In fact, the fastest part of the second. Again, locks up that slightly on the wheel. Listen here.
Well, that's only pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, I still prefer the way that Schumacher does it, short shifting and keeping the power open, rather than trying to hold the gear and then sort of changing on the exit.
So let's see where he'll end up. Fisichella is on a good lap. He's currently 6th. Where will this put the Italian? Eddie Jordan reckons the rest has done him some good. Let's see. Across the line he comes, and Fisichella stays 6th. Montoya behind him goes 4th. But a 1:15.472 means that he's still some 0.3 of a second slower than his teammate Ralf Schumacher.
And I would suspect that he'd be rather disappointed with that, because on a new set of tyres and probably relatively low fuel, you would have expected to have matched Ralf Schumacher, and in fact maybe exceeded and challenged Michael, but Michael's so far ahead, it's going to be difficult to see anybody getting into that territory around the 1 minute 14.6 seconds.
They're running that engine up, so it looks as though Button will get out for the last part of this free practice, but it doesn't look so good for Barrichello to be out.
No, Rubens really, that looked a fairly innocent little sort of slap into the barrier. Nevertheless, the team take their time. There's no pressure really to put him out. They know what the car is capable of. Rubens knows what it's capable of, and Rubens is capable of getting it onto the front row alongside his teammate Michael Schumacher.
Well, he does have the spare car, remember. Ferrari have given him the spare car for qualifying and for the race. He's not allowed to use it in free practice, but start of qualifying means that he can switch over if he needs to. And up again is Michael Schumacher on his own intermediate time to that first split, and he's faster once more.
So on the run down to the Heaven Bend.
Not such a high speed on the speed trap this time, 315 kilometers per hour. It's Fisichella, as you see, with the top speed now at 324. That's about 202 miles an hour.
Of course, then you have to relate his top speed to lap time, and the two things don't always correlate. So Michael Schumacher, with the changes they were fiddling around with the aerodynamics, taking wing off. And again, now that's how you exit out of that corner. That's the way it should be done.
Well, he is 5 times world champion.
Oh, so it does.
Somebody ahead of him, I think, had been off.
There's an arrows there in Villeneuve, so one of the two.
Michael himself used the road just about perfectly onto that extra green strip, but that still provides grit. That looked good through there as well. This is going to be a quick lap once again from Michael. Will it improve on what he did before?
Yes, it does. 14.487, and a personal best in that final sector, and what a stunning lap once again. I tell you what, I mean, Rubens Barrichello is the only man right now who's going to get anywhere near Michael Schumacher.
Eddie Irvine, let's see what he can do in the Jaguar. Looks as though he may well have gone out on new tyres. Fastest first sector, although he had been faster in the mid-sector, so perhaps he wasn't on a brand new set of tyres when he went out this time. Closing stages of the session, and let's just see how he finishes off the lap. That Ford Cosworth engine working hard as it drags him onto the straight. 12th, so he's improved. A 16.876, good last sector as well, but 12th fastest. Will that be enough to see the Jaguars getting into the sort of top 14 in this session today? It's going to be tough.
Where Eddie Irvine really benefited in Manicourt was getting into the top 10. He was 9th in the grid, and if he can get the top 10 again, it makes such a difference. You get away with the front of the field, and you can run with those cars and pull yourself away from other cars that probably are capable of lapping at the same speed, but because you're ahead of them, you make the job an awful lot easier. Well, Fredson all over the shop.
It is a little wayward, isn't it?
Very wayward. It's the exit of that corner. I'm certain that's where Schumacher picks up a bunch of time, Michael Schumacher that is, and I think that's where his improvement in lap time principally came from.
Box time, box.
Well, he's being called back into the pits anyway, so Fredson finishes off the lap down in 17th position. Heidfeld on a quick lap again. He's very fast on the first sector, Nick Heidfeld, and in fact not bad on the second sector, so keep an eye on the younger German here. Home territory for him.
Just listen to the throttle.
Oh, a bit of oversteer, but he caught it well. That won't have cost him too much time. Still a lot of work going on the steering wheel. And this is a quick lap from Heidfeld, 5th fastest. Well, he stays in 5th, a 1:15.862. And that's just 4/10 slower than Montoya.
So Takuma Masato is down in 16th place.
Certainly
Should
using
see
the
a
road.
small improvement in this lap. Yes, there is. In fact, there's quite a big improvement from 16th to 8th, 100% better.
Good effort from Takuma Sato. And he's enjoying this track and knowing the fact that other drivers don't have much advantage on circuit knowledge could put him in good stead. Trying to qualify better than 14th, where he's qualified several times this season.
David Coulthard got a personal best in the second sector. So David down in 10th place. Raikkonen up in 7th, so David Coulthard, time running out, 5 minutes remaining, will want to get something a bit more positive from the McLaren Mercedes package before he waits the 2 hours before we go into qualifying at 1 o'clock.
Sun breaking through a little bit more now, just raising the temperature a touch. David Coulthard there, an improvement, 7th fastest. And still work going on the rear wing, or a change of rear wing perhaps here for Michael, as they continue to experiment and look for those few more hundredths of a second that will give them the advantage in qualifying. They know that if Montoya a little bit of a sniff of getting pole, then he could well be in the battle again. And looks like Raikkonen will be going out on a used set of tyres here.
So Takuma Sato, good exit, nice clean balance, the car looks good. Takuma Sato 8th place.
So we've got both Jordans in the top 8 at the moment. David Coulthard currently down in 7th place, but on a good lap.
It's really curious that nobody other than Schumacher's been short shifting coming through this turn, right-hand turn onto the old part of the circuit.
Using the road nice. You can really see the sun coming through now as he comes past 2 right-handers. Had the spin earlier on, but sorts it out perfectly well this time. Is he going to move up from 7th? No. Stays in 7th place, 16.299, almost the same lap time as his previous best.
Isn't that demoralising? 1.8 seconds away from Michael Schumacher here in your home Grand Prix, and that is of course home Grand Prix for Mercedes-Benz. 1.8 seconds.
Yeah, I reckon they'll be closer than that in qualifying, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens in that 1 hour session. Felipe Massa here.
Yes, even if you took a second off that, still to be 0.8 of a second away is a long, long way, and Michael Schumacher certainly enjoying his World Championship success in Monaco and carrying it over the celebrations, it seems, to the German Grand Prix.
Well, he'll keep his fans happy anyway. The German fans often camping here at Hockenheim, although they've moved the campsites a bit this year, so it's not quite the same atmosphere going into the circuit. They used to be all camped out in the woodlands on the way into the track. They've actually sectioned off some other areas for all the campers this year, so more changes, not only on the circuit, but in the environs for the spectators. But the opportunity for them to see a lot more of the track action with the revisions to the layout.
Felipe Massa improving in first and second sectors. So currently in 12th place, looking to get somewhere nearer to his teammate Heidfeld, who's done a great job to be 5th quickest. Again, through these last 2 corners, the Brazilian, the car fidgets its way around the corner, comes across start-finish line, goes 6th, so it's Sauber's 5th and 6th right now.
So great stuff for the 2 Saubers. This is a real opportunity this weekend, John, for them to claim back some of the points advantage that Renault has, because Sauber are having a good weekend so far, and Renault are having a pretty horrible weekend, with 5 points between them in the Constructors' Championship. Perhaps a little opportunity opening up.
Well, you've got to take your opportunities, you've got to make your opportunities, and there's a bit of interest. Look at the Ferrari, the Renault and the Williams team sharing tyre information. Well, it's not all competition in the pit lane these days.
No, they're all looking at much the same information, so they might as well share some of it. As Massa continues on around, we're looking at some improvements. McNish has come up to 9th place.
Well, Jarno Trulli, in fact, and a second ago was 9th. He had improved. McNish then went out literally a few seconds later, and he's now 9th, and Trulli down to 10th.
Massa was on a good lap initially there, but he has backed it off now, so I don't think he's going to worry about it. And we're into the final minute now of free practice.
And Jenson Button has made it out onto the track. He'll probably be able to get across the start-finish line before the flag comes out. So he has done, in fact, and he will get the opportunity, as Michael Schumacher, just then pointing it out on the timing screen, Michael Schumacher back out on track with that revised rear wing setup. As Felipe Massa just sort of, I don't know, I can't say any more about Felipe Massa. Michael Schumacher fastest of all in the first sector. Comes down into the new part of the track. It's tight open. Now listen, if we can, how he goes through this right-hander back onto the old part.
Oh, he had a car there as well. That didn't help him. That was Jacques Villeneuve.
Jacques Villeneuve, indeed.
So he lost time on the mid-sector because of that. And I don't know whether he'll make it up on the last part of the lap. Enjoying driving this part of the track with lots of downforce on the car. They've never experienced this before. Usually the car slipped and slid its way around this section of track in the old days of low downforce, but now a lot more commitment. Across the line he goes, and because of the lost time, I think on that middle sector particularly, a slower lap. And I'm sure he wasn't actually on new tyres for that last run. He used them a little earlier on in the session. Fisichella's still pushing, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Fisichella's dropped down from 5th down to 7th. Nevertheless, a great job for a man who really got his bell rung on Saturday practice in Manicourt. Comes across the line. Giancarlo Fisichella stays 7th on a 16.994, and that's about 9/10 away from what his best time is. Kimi Raikkonen likewise pushing hard, still in a 12th place, and that's a big disappointment for Kimi Raikkonen. We don't know how much fuel he had on board or what McLaren were doing. Expect to see Raikkonen somewhere in the top 6, not outside the top 10 as he is right now.
Heidfeld just finishing off his laps. Last few cars to take the checkered flag. Here they come. And Heidfeld will stay in 5th place, but it's been a very good session for Sauber as they've got their cars right behind Ferrari and Williams, and damage to the front of the McLaren there. Which one is that? Let's just take a quick look.
It's Raikkonen. Yes, it is.
So Kimi Raikkonen.
Now, is that damage or is that a failure? I suspect it's damage. He may have clobbered a curb. He hasn't come to the Ajip corner where you might expect him to do it, so it's hard to see where that, unless it was on the exit of turn 1.
Yeah, possibly turn 1. We saw Massa damage his front wing at turn 1 yesterday, didn't we, when he went off on the oil. So perhaps Raikkonen ran wide at turn 1 and did something similar and has damaged the front wing, and he's fully aware of it, so he's just bringing it back nice and gently. And that won't be a problem for the team, I'm sure. Get that sorted out very quickly and get him ready for qualifying. Everybody has now taken the checkered flag. Free practice is done, the sun is coming out, and we're looking forward to the battle in qualifying. But you have to say, Ferrari do look set to go well in qualifying this afternoon, although we've said that on a number of occasions, and suddenly Montoya has apparently popped out of nowhere to grab pole position. Currently on 5 in a row, but Michael Schumacher has never ever taken pole here at Hockenheim. You have to say he's in good shape to do it today.
Well, as Kimi Raikkonen comes down, this is the replay into turn 1. This is the corner we thought maybe he would have. Oh, there he clipped it on the inside. So it wasn't on the exit of the corner, it was actually on the apex of the corner. Now, quite what is there to do that is, we need to have a little look at that. There you can see where the fracture has occurred just around the support that holds the wing in place. So clearly something from beneath whacked the wing upwards, and that caused that fracture.
Yeah, an unusual one that, so I think they'll take a close look indeed. Of course, he may have run over another curb somewhere else that could have weakened it initially, but there you can clearly see the crack in that nose cone.
Now, the other thing is going to be interesting, Ben, you mentioned the sun's just coming out. If the sun comes out, we've got 2 hours before qualifying begins. The temperature could rise by maybe 4, 5, 6 degrees. That would certainly throw a real maverick into qualifying, because everybody's based their decisions on what is known, what the temperatures are, maybe more than if suddenly the clouds break and it heats up dramatically.
And of course they don't have a data bank of information to go back on to say, well, if it increases by 4 degrees at Hockenheim, we do X, Y and Z, because it is a new track surface.
Look at this again. Now see, does he go across the curb, or does he catch one of the I think he may have caught one of those corner markers.
Yeah, I think so. I think he just took out one of the corner markers, and that was enough to take out the wing. Of course, they're travelling through that corner about 120 miles an hour or so. So very high speed, and just clipping that enough to break the front wing.
And of course, those corner markers are there to prevent drivers short-cutting the corner. The penalty, there it is. Well, there we see the errant part. So Kimi Raikkonen responsible for that, and will pay the price, or has paid the price, of a damaged nose, which will be sent back to the McLaren factory. It'll be examined, but it will be then, no doubt, put in the biffer bin, or first of all, it'll be shredded so as nobody can get it, nick around, go around to the back of the McLaren factory, open the old biffer bin and take the reused parts out. So that part will be shredded and then disposed of.
So the classification from the second free practice Saturday morning sees Michael Schumacher going fastest once again, but Ralf Schumacher getting reasonably close with the Williams. Rubens Barrichello limited running because of going off in the first session. Montoya up to fourth, and then the two Saubers, who have really been the stars of the show to a certain extent, because both Heidfeld and Massa have been consistently quick here this morning, and they are going to threaten for some good grid positions. Behind them we saw Fisichella, Salo, Coulthard and McNish, and then into the second half, Trulli ahead of Raikkonen, so Trulli improving, at least Renault making progress in that session. Irvine down in 15th place, Pedro de la Rosa in 18th. It looks as though Jaguar are going to be struggling a bit. Villeneuve, well, he's off the track more often than he was on it, but down in 16th place. And at the back, 21st Mark Webber, and last of all Alex Young, who once again had several incidents.
Well, an interesting second part of the Saturday morning sessions here. Michael Schumacher, he'll be quite happy with that final run, although Villeneuve did get in his way. Nevertheless, fastest of all in that first sector on that last run. And Felipe Massa just having a little chat, saying, "Hi Michael, you remember me? I'm the guy that drives your Sauber. I use an engine like you used last year." Oh yeah, who?
I think Michael probably would have been become quite aware of Felipe Massa this year, with some very impressive performances. Michael asking for the photographers to get out of the way a little bit so that he gets a chance to be seen by the fans, I think. Doesn't want their view completely blocked as he makes his way down the pit lane.
Well, if you're talking about demands on Nick Heidfeld here in the German Grand Prix, can you imagine what they are for Michael Schumacher, having just won the World Championship? Everybody in Germany wants a part of the guy, and just to get a few moments, just to get away, to breathe, just to relax, is just, I mean, the poor man must be overrun with requests. And of course Ferrari do not allow their team, the drivers in particular, to talk to anybody without having prior organised. And even if something happens in the pit lanes, we saw, then somebody from Ferrari will run down with a tape recorder. Everything is recorded. They control it absolutely.
Well, our chance now to look back over some of the action and incidents from that free practice session.